When preparing for a speech, it is very important that you find credible sources. And so in this lecture, we're going to talk about research and credibility. So let's get started, shall we? Why does research matter? Well, research strengthens the accuracy and the depth of your presentation. It builds credibility with your audience. It prevents misinformation and supports ethical speaking. Example is when you compare a speech with sources or without sources. So you're listening to a speech and it is an informative speech, but it seems like it's purely the information that's provided is purely the opinion of the speaker. How seriously would you take the information without the speaker telling you where they got the sources from? And so it's important that you understand that when you're doing a speech, whether informative or persuasive, cite your sources. Let your audience know that you got sources from valid places. So there are types of sources. I'm sure you're learning this in other classes, but we have primary sources, and those are original things, such as if you were to interview folks or survey, or you were to develop data on something, that's primary sources. Then there are secondary sources, and these are things like articles and textbooks or books written about a certain topic or journaled magazines and encyclopedias, and such as Wikipedia and the like, as long as within them the sources are cited. So it's important that you evaluate your sources. And in recent years, there's something called the CRAP test. And this means that you're looking at your sources for currency. Currency means, is the source up to date? Is it current? Was it written so long ago that it no longer has relevance for today? Now, there's nothing wrong with something written a long time ago in a historical perspective. But if things have changed between the time that the information was written to current or present day, then it's important that the most up-to-date information is provided. Is it relevant? That's the R, meaning, does it relate to the audience's needs? Are you talking to your audience about something that is relevant to them or not? And then the first A is authority, meaning, is the author or the publisher or both, are they credible? Meaning, are they um, entitled to talk about this information? Do they have the credentials, the experience, the ability to talk about the information provided? And then the second A is accuracy, meaning supported by evidence. Is it accurate? Is the source accurate? And then the P is it objective or is it subjective? Meaning, is it balanced or is it biased? Right? And so an example here is somebody who's writing a health blog because they're trying to sell something versus maybe the CDC website that is trying to only provide information. So we have scholarly versus popular sources. And what this means is scholarly sources are peer reviewed. And peer reviewed means that there are people who've read the information and have cited its accuracy. And so that those references are included. So that's how you know that it's a scholarly source. And then you've got popular information, such as something that the general audience may be interested in, but it's not peer reviewed. And then an example of that is that you may have a journal of communication which is a journal that might be written by different authors, but there are people in the field of communication who read those articles and vouch for the author before the articles are released. Versus, let's say, Time Magazine. And I'm not sure if this is a good example only because Time Magazine, many of the authors are referenced scholarly folks who choose to put information in Time Magazine. However, if in Time Magazine it's somebody's opinion that's written, then it's something that you don't necessarily want to use unless you provide the opinion of someone else to balance it out. That might be an opposing view. Avoid plagiarism at all costs. And what this means is always credit your sources. It is simply this. To plagiarize means that you cite a source without giving credit. So if I said education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world, and I didn't cite the source, which is Nelson Mandela, then I'm trying to steal that work. And you might say, well, you're not trying to steal it. Yes, you are if you haven't cited the source. Use direct quotes sparingly and paraphrase accurately with attribution, meaning when you paraphrase, still cite the source. Then follow, and this is in your writing. So if you're writing a speech, you want to have a citation and you want to use APA or MLA style. And I'm sure that you're learning about this in English classes. And so it's important to cite your sources. Now, there are three types of credibility in public speaking. There's initial credibility, and that's before speaking. It's the way you appear, it's your reputation. When you walk through the door in a speech, when you're doing a face to face speech or in a recorded speech, how you appear on camera, that's your initial credibility. Also, your reputation. If you are, let's say, an athlete with a great reputation, then that's your initial credibility. However, if you're an athlete with a imperfect reputation, then that also is going to affect the credibility. Now, once you start speaking, there's something called derived credibility. This happens, this happens during your speech. So while you're speaking, your audience is evaluating your speech. And if your speech appears to be, let's say, credible, reliable, accurate, and the purpose is clear, then your audience is going to think, yeah, this is a credible speaker. However, if it's the opposite, then you may lose credibility while speaking. Finally, there's something called terminal credibility. And this happens after you finish with your speech. So you've provided the speech. The audience may now be asking questions, but they've also formed an impression of you, right? While you were giving the speech. And after the speech is over, your audience is going to think, either, wow, that was a great speech. The speaker was clear and it flowed well and it was credible, or that was a terrible speech. The speaker didn't give eye contact. There were no sources cited. The voice was monotone, and that's the terminal credibility. So there are strategies to enhance your credibility. You got to show competence by being well researched. You've got to demonstrate trustworthiness by providing balanced evidence. You've got to express goodwill, and that means that you show that you care about your audience. So think about when you're giving a speech how you might use these strategies to enhance your credibility. Ethical research and speaking. So you must use evidence responsibly. Avoid cherry picking data. And what that means is avoid trying to use data that only aligns with what you want your audience to believe. So, what you want to do in a speech, especially persuasive speech, is provide a balanced approach. So you provide your audience with what you're trying to convince them to do, and then give your audience the opposite perspective, and then come back and tell your audience why they should choose yours. And also respect cultural perspectives. Be transparent about your uncertainty. So if there's something you're not sure about, tell your audience that, but also let them know that you are confident that what you're telling them has weight, meaning that it is well researched and it has purpose. So, what should you take away from this lecture? Well, research provides accuracy and depth. You must evaluate your sources carefully using the CRAP test. Credibility is built before, initially, during, derived, and after you speak, right? And so ethical speakers cite properly and provide balanced perspectives. Now, when you're getting ready to research, make sure that your sources are in keeping with this lecture. Make sure you cite your sources in your informative and your persuasive speeches. All right, so this ends this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one. Take good care.